December the 20th, 1943. High up above the freezing mountains near Bremen, Germany, the crew of a B-7 bomber called Ye Old Pub is trying really hard not to die. Enemy fire has torn holes through the plane. The guy shooting from the tail is dead. The parts that steer the plane are destroyed. 2 of the engines stopped working. And now, German fighter planes are attacking from everywhere. The American gunners inside don't even try to aim anymore. They don't have time. They just shoot everywhere super fast, nonstop. And somehow, amazingly, they make it through alive. This wasn't just a one-time thing. By the end of 1943, American bomber gunners had completely stopped carefully aiming at enemy fighters. Instead, they just sprayed bullets into the sky like crazy. The result? German fighters started getting shot down way more often. But here's the weird part. Why would trained gunners stop trying to aim carefully? Why would they ignore everything they learned in training? And even stranger, why did it actually work? To figure that out, we need to look at the statistics and understand how terrifying things really were. In 1943, the air battles over Europe were absolutely brutal. The U.S. Army Air Forces decided to bomb during the day, thinking their heavily armed B-7 and B-24s could protect themselves without help from fighter planes. The plan was this: a bunch of these bombers flying really close together would create so much gunfire that no enemy plane could get through. In real life, that plan had a ton of problems. German Air Force squadrons ripped through these bomber groups easily and viciously. Their Bf-109 and FW-190 fighters attacked straight at them, diving through the gunfire at over 400 miles per hour. In just seconds, they'd be gone, often before the gunners could even spot them. On missions like the attack on Schweinfurt in October 1943, the losses were terrible. 60 bombers destroyed, 600 crew members killed or taken prisoner. For every 5 guys who started their tour of duty, only 1 would survive to finish it. The gunners, most of them barely 18 or 19 years old, were taught to aim carefully, predict where the target would be, and not waste bullets. That training worked great at the shooting range, but during real combat in the air, it became completely useless. German pilots came at them too fast, too suddenly, and way too often. By the time a gunner saw the shiny silver wings or the scary yellow nose of a German fighter, it was already right there, attacking. So the gunners changed their approach, not because someone told them to, but because they had to survive. They stopped waiting around. They stopped trying to aim carefully. Instead, they just fired constantly at anything, everything, or even at empty sky. If someone yelled, "Fighter at 3 o'clock," they didn't even look. They just started shooting. Some fired in patterns that matched up with other gunners. Some just shot in crazy bursts, and others created walls of bullets in the directions where German planes might come from. They weren't trying to hit specific targets. They were filling the air with so many bullets that German planes couldn't get through. The result was something nobody expected. German fighter pilots who used to be super brave and attack directly started backing off sooner. More and more German fighter pilots were getting killed or wounded. Photos taken after battles started showing more wrecked German planes than before. More bombers started making it home. Just a little bit at first, and then a lot more when American escort fighters like the P-51 Mustang showed up to help. But the real game changer wasn't just that it worked better. It was what it did to the German pilots' heads. German ace pilots had always counted on tiny gaps in the defensive gunfire. They needed about 5 or 6 seconds without getting shot at to line up their attack. What the American gunners did, often without anyone ordering them to or planning it, was make those gaps disappear completely. There were no more breaks in the shooting, just constant bullets flying everywhere. This wasn't just panicking, it was adapting to survive. The B-7 had up to 13 .50 caliber machine guns on it. With 10 crew members, many of them able to shoot in overlapping directions, it really became a flying fortress. When the gunners worked together, even if it looked messy and unorganized, the amount of bullets flying was absolutely insane. Some bomber groups used up every single bullet they had before even reaching their target just to survive the flight there. Historians still argue about whether this tactic, shooting without aiming, was stupid or brilliant. The reports written after missions were all over the place. Some commanders got mad at gunners for wasting bullets without any discipline. Other commanders quietly noticed that more planes were making it back home.
But for the guys actually in the bombers, there was no argument. It kept them alive. And sometimes staying alive was the only thing that really mattered. There's one more part of this story, and it shows just how much this war had messed with these young guys' minds. Many gunners later said they never actually saw the German fighters they were shooting at. They just reacted to sounds, to gut feelings, and to their buddies yelling warnings in the chaos of freezing cold cabins, oxygen systems breaking down, and shaking gun mounts. There wasn't time to think clearly, only time to act. One gunner, Staff Sergeant Harry Zimmerman, who flew with the 100th Bomb Group, nicknamed the Bloody Hund, explained it like this. It wasn't about aiming, it was about rhythm. You move the gun back and forth, and you just keep shooting. You don't wait to see them, you just know they're coming. And if you stop shooting, you might not get another chance. This method was never made official. It wasn't written in any training books, but it spread naturally from one Bombardier crew to another. One squadron started doing it after a really bad mission. Another group tried it after hearing stories from guys who survived. Pretty soon, it became the unspoken rule everyone followed. Don't wait, don't aim, just shoot. Funny enough, this brute force strategy was a lot like something the German Air Force did earlier in the war. Schräge music, or slanted music, where German night fighters used upwarding cannons to blindly shoot at the bottoms of British bombers. In both situations, shooting tons of bullets, not careful aiming, was what got the kills. By the time the Allies completely dominated the skies in 1944, with long-range escort fighters and better radar coordination, this crazy defensive shooting became less common. Fewer bombers were getting shot down. Gunners went back to more traditional shooting methods, but the lessons stuck around. In modern air battles, the people who survive aren't always the ones who aim best, but the ones who never stop shooting. And maybe that's the most disturbing thing we can learn from those air battles. That thousands of young Americans trapped in metal death traps at 25,000 feet in the air figured out that giving up control, the discipline, the training, the logic, was what kept them alive one more day. The story of why American gunners stopped aiming isn't about giving up on skill. It's about adapting to survive. It's about young men thrown into the sky with nothing but a gun, a few hundred bullets, and each other, who completely rewrote the rules of staying alive in the most brutal war zone imaginable. And it makes you think about something pretty scary. In the next war, when machines are even faster and more deadly, will careful aiming still matter? Or will the sky once again belong to whoever shoots first and never stops? If this story changed how you think about air combat in World War II, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unknown stories from the deadliest war in human history.